The warehouse clock read 3:47 p.m. when her phone began to vibrate in the pocket of her worn jacket. She hesitated before answering. Workdays had trained her to ignore distractions, machines didn't pause, deadlines didn't soften, but something about seeing mom on the screen made her chest tighten. Calls from home rarely came without expectations attached. She wiped her hands on a rag, stepped away from the noise, and answered. Hello? There was a breath on the other end. Careful. Measured. Honey, her mother said, voice wrapped in forced warmth. Do you have a minute? She leaned against a cold steel shelf. Yeah. What's up? Another pause. The kind she'd learned to dread growing up. The kind that meant the conversation had already been practiced without her. It's about Thanksgiving, her mother finally said. Her heart lifted for half a second. Despite everything, she still hoped, every year, that maybe this time would be different. Okay, she said, quietly. Well, your sister is bringing her boyfriend home this year. It's the first time he'll be meeting the family. She smiled without realizing it. That's nice. I'm happy for her. Yes, her mother replied quickly. It is. Very nice. She's been nervous. She wants everything to go perfectly. The smile faded. And, she asked. Her mother sighed. She feels, it might be better if you didn't come this year. The words didn't register at first. They floated in the air between them, unreal. Didn't come, she repeated. She doesn't want any awkwardness, her mother said. First impressions matter. You understand that, don't you? She stared at the concrete floor, at the cracks filled with old oil stains. What kind of awkwardness? Another pause. Longer this time. She's worried your job might send the wrong message, her mother said softly. Her boyfriend's family is very accomplished. There it was. Her job. The thing she never bragged about, but never apologized for either. The job that paid her rent, kept food in her fridge, and taught her discipline no classroom ever had. My job embarrasses her, she said flatly. No, her mother rushed. That's not what I mean. You work hard. We're proud of you. This is just different. Different had always been the word used when they meant less. She thought of childhood dinners where her sister's report cards were passed around like trophies, while her own achievements were acknowledged with a nod. Of guidance counselors who talked about college savings her parents never offered to her. Of learning early how to stand on her own because no one else would. I see, she said. Her mother softened her voice. Honey, please understand. It's just one holiday. She swallowed. Yeah, she said. I understand. And she ended the call before her voice could betray her. The warehouse noise rushed back in as she slipped the phone into her pocket. Machines hummed. Forklifts beeped. Life continued, indifferent to rejection. She went back to work without saying a word. But something inside her shifted. Not into anger. Not yet. Into clarity. For the first time, she stopped wondering what she'd done wrong, and began to see what they had chosen to overlook. Thanksgiving morning arrived quietly. No buzzing phone. No last-minute change of heart. No message saying we miss you or there's still a seat if you want it. The silence said everything. She woke before sunrise out of habit, even though she didn't need to. Her small apartment was cold, the kind of cold that settled into the walls. She stood in the kitchen holding a mug of instant coffee, staring at nothing, listening to the hum of the refrigerator. This was usually the morning she'd drive home early, rehearsing polite smiles and neutral answers. The morning she'd remind herself not to mention work too much, not to wear anything that looked too rough, not to exist too loudly. This year, there was nowhere to go. She checked her work schedule again, though she already knew it by heart. A double shift had opened up, and she'd taken it without hesitation. Work was easier than explaining absence. Easier than feeling unwanted. Outside, the streets were emptier than usual. Houses glowed warm with early ovens and laughter she could imagine but not hear. As she drove past neighborhoods that smelled faintly of roasted turkey, her chest tightened, not with jealousy, but with a quiet ache she'd grown familiar with. At the warehouse, the lights were harsh and honest. No decorations. No pretending. "Didn't think anyone would take today," a supervisor said, surprised. She shrugged. "Someone has to." He nodded, grateful, and moved on. She liked that here, effort was enough. No one asked who her family was or what she could have been. They asked if she showed up on time. If she finished the job. If she helped when someone else struggled. She spent the morning moving inventory, muscles burning, mind oddly calm. During lunch, she shared a table with two coworkers who didn't have families nearby either. They talked about food they missed, traditions they'd abandoned, and plans to order takeout later. No pity. No judgment. Just understanding. As the day stretched on, memories crept in anyway. Her mother teaching her sister how to set the table, while she was told to stay out of the way. Family photos where she stood slightly to the side. Praise that always felt conditional. She had learned early that love, in her family, came with rules. By the time her shift ended, the sky had darkened. She walked out tired but steady, the kind of exhaustion that felt earned. On the drive home, she stopped at a small diner still open, ordered soup, and ate alone without rushing. That night, she didn't cry. Instead, she folded laundry. Cleaned her apartment. Prepared for the next workday. It wasn't denial, it was survival. And survival had taught her something important: she didn't need permission to matter. Still, as she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, a thought surfaced that refused to leave. They hadn't just uninvited her. They had chosen her absence. And in that choice, something fragile between them had cracked, quietly, but permanently. She didn't know it yet, but the silence they gave her was making room for something new. Something stronger. Something entirely her own. 5 days after Thanksgiving, the knock came like an accusation. Not gentle. Not patient. Furious. She was just setting a plate in the sink when the doorbell rang again, longer this time, followed by a sharp rap against the wood. She froze, listening, her instincts already bracing for trouble. No one visited her apartment unannounced. No one came angry unless they believed they were owed something. She wiped her hands and opened the door. Her parents stood there, coats half-buttoned, faces tight with restrained outrage. Her sister hovered beside them, arms crossed, jaw clenched. The cold air rushed in behind them, carrying the smell of rain and disappointment. "What did you do?" her sister demanded before anyone else could speak. She blinked. "Hello to you too." Her mother stepped forward, eyes sharp but uneasy. "We need to talk." Her father didn't meet her gaze. "Now." She stepped aside wordlessly, letting them in. The apartment was small, tidy, and unremarkable. No framed degrees on the walls. No signs of apology either. Her sister glanced around with barely concealed judgment. "This is where you live?" "Yes," she replied evenly. "I like it." They didn't sit. "You embarrassed us," her mother said, voice trembling with anger. "Do you have any idea what you caused?" She folded her arms. "I'm listening." Her sister laughed, sharp and bitter. "My boyfriend thinks you're some kind of hero. Do you know how ridiculous that sounds?" Before she could respond, a figure appeared in the doorway behind them. The boyfriend. He had stayed back, uncomfortable, unsure. When his eyes met hers, recognition struck instantly. His posture stiffened, and his expression shifted from confusion to disbelief. "It's you," he said. The room fell silent. "You know her?" her mother asked. He nodded slowly. "Yeah. I do." Her sister spun toward him. "From where?" He took a breath. "From work." Her sister scoffed. "She doesn't." She works at the distribution center, he interrupted gently. Same place I do. Or did. All eyes turned to her. You never said that, her father muttered. You never asked, she replied. The boyfriend stepped further inside. Boy, steady now. She trained me when I first started. I was struggling, about to quit, honestly. She stayed late. Walked me through everything. Taught me how to keep up. Her sister's face flushed. So what? That doesn't. It does, he said firmly. Because management noticed. They promoted me. I wouldn't be where I am without her. Her mother stared at her as if seeing her for the first time. Is that true? She nodded once. Yes. The apartment felt suddenly too small for the truth filling it. Her sister shook her head. You let us think you were just stuck. I never lied, she said quietly. I just didn't perform for you. The boyfriend exhaled, rubbing his hands together. I didn't know she was your sister. If I had. His voice trailed off. Her mother's anger softened into something closer to regret. Why didn't you tell us? She met her gaze, calm and unflinching. Because every time I tried to be proud of myself, you compared me to her. Silence pressed down on them. Her father finally spoke. You should have been there for Thanksgiving. She smiled faintly. You made sure I wasn't. No one argued. The truth stood between them now, unavoidable, undeniable. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't shrinking to make it easier for them to swallow. The silence after the truth settled was heavier than any argument could have been. No one moved at first. Her parents stood in the middle of her small living room like guests who had overstayed their welcome, unsure whether they were still entitled to be there. Her sister's arms slowly dropped to her sides, the anger draining from her face and leaving something raw and unsettled behind. It was the boyfriend who spoke first. I don't think I should stay, he said quietly. His voice carried no accusation, only clarity. This feels like something your family needs to deal with. Her sister turned toward him, panic flashing across her features. You're leaving? He nodded. I need to think. The door closed behind him with a soft click. That sound did something to her sister. The composure she'd built her life on fractured. You did this on purpose, she accused, voice shaking. You wanted to ruin everything. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't smile. I didn't do anything, she said calmly. I lived my life. Her mother pressed a hand to her mouth. We didn't know, she whispered. If we had known how important you were at work. She stopped her gently with a look. That's the problem. Her parents turned toward her fully now. You shouldn't need proof that I matter, she continued. You shouldn't need someone else to validate me before you respect me. Her father's shoulders sagged. We made mistakes. Yes, she agreed. You did. The simplicity of the statement left no room for denial. Her sister laughed bitterly. So what now? You get to feel superior? She shook her head. No. I get to feel free. She walked to the door and opened it, holding it there, not angrily, not dramatically. Just firmly. I'm not cutting you off, she said. But I'm done shrinking myself to make you comfortable. Her mother's eyes filled with tears. Can we fix this? She thought for a moment before answering. That depends on whether you can love me without comparing me. They didn't answer right away. That was answer enough. After they left, the apartment felt lighter. Not empty, lighter. She sat on the couch and let the quiet wrap around her, a quiet that no longer felt lonely. Over the next days, she returned to her routine. Work. Rest. Small joys. She was offered a lead position at the warehouse, something management had been considering long before Thanksgiving. She accepted without hesitation. Her phone buzzed occasionally with messages from home. Apologies. Explanations. Invitations. She didn't rush to respond. Revenge, she realized, wasn't about humiliation or anger. It was about boundaries. About refusing to be invisible. Weeks later, she stood in front of a mirror before another long day, hands steady, posture sure. She no longer wondered if she was enough. They had tried to remove her from the table. Instead, she had built her own. And for the first time in her life, it was full of dignity, self-respect, and a future that belonged entirely to her.